Carrie Morgan was Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. She described witnessing Combs assaulting Cassie twice.
Cassie for 17 years, but things went sour after she alleged that Diddy beat her with a wooden coat hanger and she signed an NDA.
Did Diddy become agitated at the brief court appearance when Cassie's best friend, Carrie Morgan, testified? What set him off will surprise you.
Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. She described witnessing Combs assaulting Cassie twice, the first time in a home Combs was renting in the Hollywood Hills. Morgan testified that, quote, "I saw him push her. I'm pretty sure he hit her." The second time allegedly happened in Jamaica. Morgan says they were in the bar area of a home when, quote, "I heard her screaming." She recalled guttural, terrifying screams. Combs faces the possibility of life in prison if convicted. He's pleaded not guilty and has denied all wrongdoing.
There was a noticeable weight in the air as everyone settled, in for what they thought would be another day in court, even though the atmosphere wasn't especially tense. At his table, Dodie leaned back a little in his chair, while beside him, his legal team was going through notes, appearing to have the day planned out and full of confidence. Behind the courtroom boundaries, the reporters chattered among themselves, cameras poised to record anything remotely, and then, when Carrie Morgan entered the room, everyone was taken aback. Her name had been brought up a few times, but few had recognized her significance as Cassie's best friend in this situation. The swearing in of Carrie altered the atmosphere of the room. Diddy's body language, which had previously been placid, followed her every move with a series of glances that could only be described as anxious. The prosecution was ready to welcome Carrie to the stand, and she looked calm but determined. Diddy is renowned for remaining composed under duress, but it wasn't immediately apparent to everyone in the courtroom that he was losing it. His pupils narrowed, his hands gripped together, and his jaw tightened. Yet those watching him intently began to pick up on the tiny clues. Witnesses reportedly characterized the scene as electric, with the entire courtroom in suspense over Carrie's statements, and more especially Diddy's response, as the tension was immediately apparent. That happened. The testimony of Carrie was interrupted by Diddy, who slammed his hand down on the table and spoke loudly. He was clearly furious, according to media sites, with one reporter stating, "It was as if he couldn't hold back another second." Carrie's remarks triggered a reaction, causing explosive personal information to spill out like fuel on a fire. The court called for order several times, but the security guards in the room, it was a whole moment of disintegration. Pointing to Carrie and shaking his head, he yelled fiercely to his legal team. The controlled image he had worked so hard to build was a far cry from his demeanor when witnesses later told reporters about the chaos. A pin drop could be heard one moment, and then everyone in the room appeared to be really horrified and on edge. One witness claimed that even Diddy's lawyers were surprised and desperately attempting to soothe him, and another court source claimed that cameras outside the courthouse recorded a flurry of activity during the break. While reporters frantically tried to piece together what had happened, the true mystery that lingered over the room was what Carrie Morgan had said that so badly upset Diddy. One of the most immovable individuals in the music industry was clearly shaken by whatever she had said. Understanding Carrie Morgan and the relevance of her comments in this specific context is necessary before we can appreciate Diddy's answer.
Carrie Morgan was on the stand. That was Cassie Ventura's former best friend. What did Carrie say happened after that incident?
Cassie Ventura left the Intercontinental Hotel, went back to her apartment, her home, and there was Carrie Morgan waiting. She said immediately she saw the black eye that Ventura had testified Combs gave her after the freak-off got violent, and the whole reason why then the subsequent assault in the hallway happened. And then Carrie Morgan said about a half hour later, Sean Combs starts banging on the door with a hammer. It was not let in, but she said she heard him yelling, finally called some of Combs' staff members to try to get him to leave. Police were called, but Cassie Ventura said, and Carrie Morgan backed this up, that nothing ever came of it because Cassie Ventura refused to say anything about Sean Combs and what happened to her.
Aaron, I have to ask you, because Combs was sitting just feet away from Don Richard and Carrie Morgan in court today, how did he react to seeing them and hearing all of this?
He's been an attentive listener. In some cases, he would shake his head or nod along or consult with his lawyers, scribbling a lot of notes. This was an important part of the testimony because it made a turn, Eva. The jury had heard from Cassie Ventura directly about, in rather explicit terms, a lot of the sex acts. But the prosecution's whole case is that she was coerced into that sex because of the violence, the kind of violence that both Don Richard and Carrie Morgan said they witnessed. Now, the defense says there are other reasons for the violence. Jealousy, drugs, didn't have anything to do with coercing her into sex. But the prosecutors want the jury to hear these accounts to say that Cassie Ventura was not only telling the truth about being beat up, but that she had reason to then go along with Sean Combs' sexual demands.
Despite her lack of fame, Carrie Morgan has become one of the most important voices. In this case, since Cassie's best friend has stepped out to support her and testify as a pivotal witness whose evidence has the ability to change everything. What she understands that others don't, and what makes her remarks so potent that they completely upended Diddy must be your question. Not only are these questions being asked out of curiosity, but they are also necessary to understand why this trial has taken such a sharp turn. Prior to the installation of the courtroom cameras, Carrie Morgan and Cassie apparently formed a bond based on trust. Friends who know both women consider Carrie to be very devoted to Cassie, and someone who has stood by her side through thick and thin because of their years of mutual trust and life experiences. Why does that matter? Considering that Carrie is the only one who has lived long enough to see what went on behind closed doors. She has known Cassie for a long time, so her testimony is more than just a statement. It is a direct account of Cassie's experiences. Aside from her long-standing relationship with Cassie, Carr's trustworthiness has been credited to her careful, measured demeanor, which prevents her from speaking until she is absolutely confident of what she is saying. One person familiar with the situation even gave her a call. She is hardly a drama queen, which makes her decision to stand all the more intriguing. She was not coerced into taking center stage. Instead, she rose to the occasion fully aware of the gravity of her role in exposing the truth. Now, let's go on to the primary query. Based on reports, how much do we actually know about Carrie? Carr says she has seen or heard about serious abuse, occurrences throughout Cassie's tumultuous relationship with Diddy firsthand, and her evidence isn't based on hearsay or vague perceptions. Her assertions were not made public, but one media outlet referred to her as the piece of the puzzle no one saw coming, highlighting the significance of her testimony in this trial. Carrie is also notable for her willingness to take on a world-renowned figure in a public courtroom. The bravery required to speak up has been remarked upon by nearly everyone following the case, particularly in light of Diddy's extensive legal resources. She is clearly not holding back because she has allegedly engaged in practices of control manipulation and harmed people, which, if confirmed, may significantly change the case in Cassie's favor. Carr declares her intention to seek justice for herself in her declaration. Regardless of the personal risk, her testimony is inevitable, which is why we are here. Even if Carrie Morgan hinted at information that no one else could, the question remains, what did she say during her deposition that rocked the courtroom? Let's examine the specifics of what was disclosed and why Diddy and everyone else were taken aback. I assure you that the accusations are explosive.
You already mentioned the second witness today, Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan. What did Carrie have to say?
So let me tell you, Carrie Morgan is crucial, and she came crucial because she comes off as credible. Because one of the first statements that she made is that she came here because she was compelled to testify. She no longer speaks to Cassie Ventura. They stopped talking in 2018 after this incident having to deal with where she was assaulted by Sean Combs, where Sean Combs grabbed her by the neck and also threw a wooden hanger at her, but also that it led to Cassie giving her $30,000 so she wouldn't say anything about that specific incident, and that was the end of their relationship. She also corroborated two of the assaults that took place, having to deal with Cassie in terms of her being drugged and as well as her being punched. So she corroborated a lot of the testimony, but she came off as a neutral witness, and the defense wasn't able to break her as they wanted to, but was able to say that, look, it was still a loving relationship.
It was not merely another stage in the trial when Carrie Morgan gave her testimony. Rather, it was the turning point. As soon as she took a seat, the atmosphere changed dramatically. It was the testimony that everyone had been waiting for, or in Diddy's case, dreading. And when she finally spoke, it was instantly evident why her words were not only startling, but also devastating. Although the charges were made gradually, they seemed to be more serious with each passing syllable. She described specific incidents of abuse, manipulation, and control that she said Cassie experienced at Diddy's hands and witnessed personally. Her description of one horrifying episode after another, however, was what truly stopped everyone cold. Sometimes, Carrie said, physical violence wasn't just a possibility, it was real. She even described specific incidents where Diddy's rage erupted with horrifying consequences, and she claimed to have seen bruises on Cassie on numerous occasions. Psychological coercion, alleging Diddy regularly exploited his power and influence to maintain control over Cassie. The most startling part was when Carrie said Diddy would prevent Cassie from seeing friends and relatives, even going so far as to keep an eye on her phone conversations and texts in order to maintain control over her life. This was something a lot deeper, Carrie said, than a horrible breakup or a tumultuous relationship. As if that weren't enough, she didn't mince words when making specific accusations, mentioning a particular evening that left the jury in stunned silence. Carrie did not divulge all the information, but she did share. She related a story about how Cassie supposedly contacted her out of dread, saying that Diddy's anger had gotten out of control. Carrie claimed she had to physically step in, which, if things hadn't gone as planned, may have made the situation worse. The response in court was quick. At one point, the chamber erupted in audible gasps, and the judge had to order the gallery to settle down. Diddy's attorneys exchanged angry looks as Carrie's remarks turned into, despite how startling Carrie's remarks were, everyone was preoccupied with one question. How would Diddy's staff react to these astonishing claims? Would they confront her allegations directly or try to discredit her completely? An already tumultuous trial would only get more dramatic from what happened next. When Diddy smacked his fist on the table so forcefully, it echoed and screamed something. Beneath his breath, it was said that he lost it. It was described by witnesses as a festering anger that ultimately erupted. It took the judge several minutes to halt the proceedings.
And I will say, I think she seemed to say things very matter of fact. There were definitely moments where there was a little bit of what I would call sass, which I didn't think was a bad thing. I think she represented herself very well, and I felt as I read what was being said, she seems like a very credible witness. I think this is going to be one that may stick out in the jury's mind because she was subpoenaed to be here. She is speaking in defense of Cassie, but at the same time, she was also very hurt by Cassie.
Yeah.
And the way that it all came out was very honest. So it's definitely an interesting one to go through.
Yeah, I mean, she's giving a perspective that it feels more like, I don't give a crap about any of these people, so I'm going to give it to you straight. I've moved on from all this, but let's go do it. And not really throwing Cassie under the bus anyway, but
no,
clearly doing it more honestly. So so she made it clear she was only there because of the subpoena, and she confirmed that she and Cassie, who met on a modeling shoot as teenagers, no longer speak because Ventura's boyfriend ate her. Now, was this Agnifilo the Costco lawyer did end up doing this or not?
Yes, Mark Agnifilo, or as we lovingly call him, the Costco lawyer.
Because it's just funny, there's this buildup of he's finally going to do something during this trial. It was our first chance to see Costco lawyer step up to the stand, Kim, right? So as we go through, let's see how he does, yeah?
Yeah. It was fascinating.
Carrie Morgan's entire role in this case was being undermined by the defense, not merely a counter-argument. When Dylan's attorneys centered their cross-examination on Carr's relationship with Cassie, implying that her testimony might have been skewed because of their close friendship, the first phase of their plan became clear. In whatever circumstance, would you say you've always supported Cassie? However, the grilling didn't stop there. It was a deliberate attempt to get the jury to question if Carrie's viewpoint was founded on truth or only blind loyalty. Those in the courtroom said that one attorney asked Carrie this in an effort to portray her as too emotionally committed to provide a dispassionate account. They went a step further and asserted that her recall of events might have been impacted by her loyalty to Cassie. As they began to examine the timeline of Carr's allegations, Duty's lawyers questioned, "Isn't it true that you weren't physically present for all of these incidents?" When prompted to identify inconsistencies in her story, one lawyer made it clear that the defense was The defense created the notion that Carrie had a motive for testifying during their cross-examination search for inconsistencies. At one point, they implied that her personal frustrations with Diddy, rather than a sincere desire to come forward, were the reason behind her choice. One lawyer posed the inquiry. Would you describe your relationship with Mr. Combs as positive before this? Which raised the possibility that Carrie had motives for coming forward. Hurt Diddy's reputation. It's possible that Carrie was not just a witness, but also actively participated in an effort to discredit him. The acrimony between Diddy's legal team and Carrie escalated to the point where the judge had to step in many times to keep the proceedings moving forward. The defense made it clear that they were willing to fight tooth and nail to discredit Carr's evidence if it was going to weaken the case, even after the judge reminded Did's lawyers that this court will not tolerate disrespect toward any witness, when one of them became particularly combative. However, there were differing opinions on the defense's approach. Some courtroom insiders who called out shortcomings in Carrie's testimony felt they had an impact, but others noted that Carrie remained calm and consistent, which may have increased her credibility. The real test will be whether the jury sees their questions as legitimate or as an attempt to intimidate her. That is the question that hangs over this case, according to a reliable source. Will Carr's testimony be sufficiently refuted by the defense, or will her claims and the evidence they support be too compelling to deny? The evidence Carrie provided in court may provide the answer to that issue, as will whether or not it has the capacity to fundamentally change how this trial is conducted.
You two were best friends for 18 years, but now you haven't spoken with her since 2018. That's true. At the danger of being capital obvious, that's a long time. She's moved on. Objection. Why haven't you spoken with her? She did not support me after Sean assaulted me. I try that line at assault. I don't know what that means. Oh, I think it means I set the line at assault. I don't cross the line of assault or whatever. You reached a settlement with Miss Ventura? The money came from Mr. Combs. So this was after I believe she was assaulted by Diddy, that that in order to hush her up, Diddy gave her some money, or they settled it, however it is. That's a pattern that seems to be happening with him throughout the decades. So Agnifilo shows Carrie Morgan photos, then asks, do you know if Louise Hayes is a self-help author about self-affirmation? Yes. Why did you send him this with words of encouragement? I don't remember sending it. Okay. I want to show you a few more photos. But first, let's talk about the incident where he put his hands on your neck. Were you and Cassie using any drugs at the time? No. What did he say? He said, who is she cheating with? You went to an urgent care and not the hospital, right? Like she's saying just right as the answer. But you told the prosecutors it was bloody and you went to the hospital. I don't remember that. Look at this. And so this is material not shown to the jury. I see that I said that. Now in this, I think it's like now in cross-examination. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. I see that I said that. Do you remember Mr. Agnifilo asking you about an incident in LA? Objection, overruled. And he hit her like in Jamaica, arguing. Oh, okay. That's what it is. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me go back. So they were doing right here. Agnifilo is Diddy's attorney. That's why I wasn't understanding. So they did the cross. All right. So now this is the prosecutors again asking her questions. They get to come back up. So that's who's asking. That's just like, why is Agnifilo asking a question about himself?
Carrie Morgan presented what kind of evidence? Her testimony shook the courtroom because it was supported by hard evidence rather than ethereal memories or imprecise assertions. Her position in the trial was undoubtedly far larger than anyone had anticipated, and despite the strength of her statements, the evidence she disclosed seemed to take this case to new heights. Carrie apparently sent a variety of texts, photos, and even recordings to support her accusations. Insiders claim that a suspected set of communications showed Cassie and Carrie communicating directly with Diddy at the time of the incidents. Cassie reportedly gave first-hand stories of violent episodes in which she contacted Carrie when in a panic and desperation. Witnesses viewed the content as horrific, and attorneys utilized excerpts from these texts in court. The judge's appearance, was noted by one onlooker, demonstrated the seriousness of the charges by displaying signals of discomfort as the information was disclosed, but that wasn't all. In support of her allegations, Carrie also shared photos she alleges Cassie sent her, which purportedly showed bruises and other ailments. The prosecution exhibited the images, and the courtroom fell silent as one journalist described them as heartbreaking and graphic, leaving spectators to piece together the series of events that preceded these moments. Using these images, the abuse can be documented and guidance sought. Messages with the images attached purportedly stated that Cassie was scared of retaliation if she tried to break up with him. The images and texts, when taken together, seemed to provide a clear and disturbing picture of what was purportedly happening behind closed doors, according to later courtroom testimony. Then came the tapes, which were said to be the most damaging evidence she had ever shown in court. Carrie, conflicts between Cassie and Diddy. One of the videos that was shown to the court purportedly showed Diddy shouting in a manner that confirmed reports of his explosive temper. Threats were allegedly included in another recording, which obviously alarmed those in the gallery. The defense tried to argue that the recordings were uncontextual and didn't prove anything, but the tone of them was sufficient to disprove their claims. Insiders in the courtroom described how this evidence was responded to. A dimension of credibility was added by Carr's testimony and the proof she provided, making it clear that this was no longer merely a he said, she said situation. Where does this leave the case, though? As each piece of evidence was revealed, revealing the accusations as never before, one journalist characterized the room as being incredibly uncomfortable. Another source stated that the jury appeared to be in a state of shock. Not only were her statements accusations, but each one appeared to be backed up by facts. One thing is clear, even if this lawsuit is still pending. After Carrie Morgan's testimony, everything changed drastically. What follows could be even more shocking. Not just Diddy and Cassie, but the courage needed to confront powerful individuals and reveal uncomfortable facts is what this trial is all about. This case has reached a new level thanks to Carrie Morgan's testimony, but the evidence she offered has the potential to drastically change the outcome, as given how beautiful everything has already been, it appears like we have only just started. To investigate the case, what follows may alter our perception of it. Kindly let us know what you think in the comments box below, and don't forget to subscribe to receive updates as things progress. Many more things are yet to come, so stay tuned.